Evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council to order. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, please bless our elected officials. Grant them courage and wisdom to do what is right for all citizens. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Riska. Can we please have the roll call?
Mayor Taylor?
Here.
Mrs. Rasky?
Here.
Mrs. Kosky?
Present.
Mr. Radke? Mrs. Schmidt?
Present.
Mr. Yanes?
Here.
Mrs. Yarko?
Present.
And council, we need approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Konsky.
move to approve the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Radke sends his regrets. He's unable to be here tonight. He will be back for the next city council meeting. First item on our agenda tonight is a report from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. Let me begin by reminding everyone that there is a one-day delay in refuse collection this week. So if your collection is tomorrow, you don't have to set it out tonight. Do it tomorrow night. And I'm sure I'm going to forget that when I get home tonight. But we do have a one-day delay in refuse collection. So Friday's collection will be picked up on Saturday. And Mayor, I thought it'd be good to give a quick update on some of the many road projects we have going on. So I'm going to rattle through these very quickly, just because I know everyone's anxious or we have a lot of congestion in the city. We're trying to move these projects along as quickly as possible. First, the good news is we do have a lot of road work going on in the city. Ryan Road, from 14 to 15, all the concrete work is done now. Joint sealing is ongoing, and this section of roadway from 14 to 15 on Ryan will be open in the next few days. The second part of Ryan Road from 15 to Metro Parkway, Phase 2, this work is being done on the outside lanes currently with pavement removals. Some of you may have noticed that work, but it's proceeding as planned. Metro Parkway, DeQuinder to Ryan, this is a county road project. It's progressing. The two outer lanes have been paved with the first course of asphalt. So no delays at the moment on Ryan Road. Of course, we've had pretty good weather the last month. Metro Parkway, again, this is a county road project from Van Dyke to Dodge Park Road. That concrete repair work is underway with the outside lanes being done and local road approaches. So these are significant sections of Metro Parkway. They're going to take months to finish up. Mound Road, I'm sure most are familiar with Mound Road and doing your best to avoid it, but that work is ongoing north of 15 Mile Road all the way up to M59. Needless to say, just a massive project, over $200 million, but it is progressing nicely. The good news is we've had a lot of inquiries about this Hayes Road between 18 Mile and M59. That bid opening was July 1st, so last week, and we expect that project to start in August. This is a county road project as well. There'll be significant concrete repair work and then an asphalt overlay of that road. It's in horrible condition, so we look forward to getting that project completed this year. That will be done, weather permitting, by year end with all the punch list work finished up next spring. Our local road project has started. We have many local roads that are being done this year. Work has started on 10 of the 18 streets in the program, and of those that have started, we're already 50% through, so that project's moving along very nicely. And then in addition to our local road reconstruction, we have a local road sectional repair, and these are significant sectional repairs throughout neighborhoods. That work is just starting with saw cutting. All the notifications have gone on, and both these local road projects will continue throughout the summer and fall months. And also I wanted to mention that our sidewalk replacement program, one of the largest in the city's history, has started. That work is well underway as well. So there is a lot of construction activity going on. As I do every year, I apologize in advance, but this is short-term pain for long-term gain. We do have a much better road network than we did 5-7 years ago. So thank you for your patience. And Mayor, the good news is that is the end of my report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. If you guys don't mind, we do have a big crowd here tonight. We're going to move into the next item on our agenda. If you can silence your cell phones, we'd appreciate that. And hold any applause, cheering, booing. We would appreciate that. It is disruptive. We're going to try to get through this efficiently. I do also want to say right off the bat, before we go into this item, that we have a council member who's not here with us tonight, Mike Radke, as you can tell. This is a matter of importance, not just to you, but to the entire community. And I am going to ask, once it comes to the city council, I'm going to ask that this matter be postponed to the 7/19/22 council meeting. So that's 2 weeks from tonight, so that we have a full panel that can vote on it. There's a number of reasons why I think that that's important, but I do want to just let you know that I'm going to ask for a postponement. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I am going to ask for it. So if you want to speak tonight, you are welcome to speak tonight, but there is a good possibility that this will not be decided tonight. It will potentially be decided at the next city council meeting on July 19th. So with that in mind, we will move on to this next item, which is a public hearing, and this is to consider the application by Wad Not Here on behalf of BOSC Realty Advisors LLC for a mixed-use planned unit development on approximately 10.0 acres of land situated on the south side of Hall Road, west of Starrett Street, PPUD 21-0005. We have a presentation from our city planner, Chris McLeod. Mr. McLeod.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you note, this is the second public hearing on this particular item. One was held by the Planning Commission in previous months, starting in December of 21, moving into February of 22. The proposed planned unit development would encompass a number of different properties having Hall Road addresses and Starrett addresses, totaling a total of 6 properties itself. This request, if granted, would permit a mixed-use development, including 3 commercial outbuildings, if you will, or 3 commercial frontage buildings, along with a 5-story mixed-use building for both commercial and multiple family uses. The total number of multiple family units being proposed at this point are as 158 1- and 2-bedroom units and approximately 40,000 square feet of retail use. Again, those locations of the particular properties are 11106, 11124, 11144 Hall Road, and 44773, 44871, and 44891 Starrett. The current zoning of those properties is C1 Local Convenience Business District, R81 Family Residential District, and P1 Vehicular Parking District. As noted, the applicant did appear before the Planning Commission at the December 8th as well as the February 9th, 22 meetings. The Planning Commission considered a number of different items relative to this request. Obviously, it's a major request within the city. They took significant conversation and discussion on the setback and greenbelt to the south and west ends of the property. Sorry.
That's new.
Haven't heard that one before. Overall parking calculations and amount of parking being provided, access to Starrett, overall green space, open space, and recreation space, all in different kinds of accounts for the overall project itself, as well as just the overall merits of the project in general. The Planning Commission ultimately did recommend approval at their February 9th, 2022 meeting. That tallied in a 6-1 vote. There were 2 members absent that particular evening. Since the Planning Commission took their action, and this was specific to their request or to their action itself, additional land banking of parking spaces to increase the green space on the site was added, and then additional rooftop recreation area, and then both of those totaled an additional green belt or green space being provided for the site itself. Here you can see the general zoning map of the vicinity, showing that C1 zoning designation along the Hall Road frontage, the rear portion of the property being the R80, surrounding properties being R80 as well, then a myriad of different zonings being R80, O1, RM1, all within the general vicinity of the particular property. This kind of shows an aerial perspective looking to the northeast in this particular direction, obviously Hall Road towards the upper left-hand portion of the screen, the single-family residential properties to the bottom portion and to the right-hand side of the screen, if you will. Kind of showing the configuration, kind of flipping the script, looking in a different direction, the opposite direction, the southwesterly direction, looking across M59, again into the background in this particular depiction of the single-family residential. The office immediately that's to the west of this site. Stared is to the bottom portion of the screen, at the bottom of the woodland area being shown there. This provides the updated rendering as provided by the applicant, again showing those 3 commercial buildings along the frontage. Each one of those buildings would have a drive-through. The bottom building, the smallest of the 3, would be a standalone drive-through facility. The middle building, in this particular drawing, would be a multiple-tenant commercial center, having a drive-through end cap on the eastern end of the building. And then finally, the far left-hand building, the most eastward building closest to Starrett, would also be a multiple-tenant building, again having a drive-through end cap on it. In the background of this particular drawing, you can see the proposed rendering of the multiple-family complex. Again, 5 stories, basically 4 stories of residential sitting atop the first floor story of parking that would sit underneath the building. And then to the far left-hand screen or side of that particular building is 2 stories of basically a supermarket use that is yet to be determined based on the applicant's the description to us, and then 3 stories of residential sitting on top of that. And again, you can see the surrounding environs overlaid in terms of the aerial there. But again, taking a look at how this sits in the middle of the screen, you can see that there's notches within that main building itself. Those are the rooftop recreational areas that are being provided by the applicant in a much more urban type environment, urban type recreation area that isn't normally contemplated within our normal multiple family districts. But the applicant was trying to be creative in terms of providing the recreational space in a manner that they felt was more appropriate for the market that they're trying to reach here. The rear portion of the building, again, looking towards Hall Road itself and the single-family residential to the bottom portion of the screen, showing the rear portion of the building. It should be noted, obviously, as this kind of went through a number of iterations, both through administration as well as through the Planning Commission, this building kept continuing to creep further away from the residential setting as the applicant continued to try to accommodate setback concerns and height concerns raised, obviously, by administration, as well as the residents at the public hearing held through the Planning Commission process. So ultimately, this building moved during the Planning Commission review an additional just about 20 feet further from that southern setback. In addition, the landscaping, we'll just move right into that depiction, along the southern property line includes a significant amount of landscaping well above and beyond what our ordinance would normally anticipate. The applicant is looking to plant trees ranging anywhere from 15 to 40 or so feet in height in terms of preserving the existing tree canopy as well as they can within that green belt area, again, to help buffer the proposed building from the single-family residential to the south. And again, in this particular depiction, you can see the recreational areas that front the Hall Road side, and now there is a third recreational area that sits to the southeast corner of the building that actually sits above the supermarket space itself. And here you can see the overall landscaping scheme in terms of the rendering. The applicant did provide this as part of their Planning Commission review. This is the intended sight lines showing the overall height of the building at different sections of the building and how they sit relative to the residential properties, again, to the south, showing in terms of the wall being provided, the berm being provided in certain areas, and then the landscaping atop of that, as well as the preservation of certain trees along the back portion of the property. And then the landscape intensification, this is kind of the southwest corner of the property. Those lighter depictions that are numbered that show trees being saved in this particular location, and then supplemental trees being planted in addition to that. So in this particular area, they are trying to preserve as many of the existing trees that they can within the green belt itself. And then obviously, as you move to the east, they're showing more of a planted landscaping buffer scenario. That darker rectangular area you see there is the dog park, which is an amenity being provided to the residents within the overall development. And here you see the overall size of the green belt adjacent to the residential development to the south. So when we look at the PUDs that come before you and come before Planning Commission as well, ultimately you take a look at the intended uses. PUDs can include both residential and non-residential uses as the Planning Commission and City Council ultimately feel is appropriate and in that particular configuration. Basically using setbacks and dimensional requirements of the underlying zoning districts as a general guide. However, the PUD ordinance does provide for guidance in terms of when those are not necessarily applicable. Obviously, this is a non-residential use as well as a multiple family use, sitting atop a commercial zoning designation as well as a single family zoning designation. So the PUD ordinance does provide guidance in that particular instance in terms of how that should be applied. Permitted commercial uses should be limited to those determined appropriate by council. Again, we've kind of gone through that in terms of the PUD agreement. That's as part of your packet. Attached residential units may be permitted. Obviously, here we have a overall multiple family 5-story building being proposed. And then elderly housing, that's really not applicable in this particular instance. So in terms of the overall development, the city is moving in this direction and desiring to have mixed-use developments within the city. The overall development plans do provide for an attractive development in terms of architecture and the various amenities being proposed. The applicant has made a number of changes based on feedback, not only from administration. This has been a project that has been kind of in the review hopper, so to speak, for quite some time. And then as the Planning Commission reviewed it, and then again through the public hearing process, the applicant made additional changes to the particular application. Again, the landscaping along that south and to the west side of the development does exceed what would normally be allowed for or provided for within the zoning ordinance, including the preservation of larger existing trees and the planting of large and evergreen and deciduous trees as a mix. The open space and green space and recreation space as an overall have increased in each subsequent site plan submission. And then finally, there are a number of modifications that would be necessary, and those are outlined in your agenda statements and the staff presentation within your packets to allow for this proposed development. So with that, I'll be more than glad to try to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. McLeod. At this time, I will open the public hearing. And again, I will just remind you that I am going to be asking for a postponement tonight. Would the applicant like an opportunity to address the city council? Go ahead.
Hello, that work? Good evening, council members. My name is Andrew Nader from Bosk Realty Advisors, and today with me I have Wad Nader, president of Bosk, Jason Krieger from Krieger Clad Architects, and Eric Williams, our civil engineer from Stonefield Engineering. A little background on our company. We were formed in 1989. And we're a local family-owned company that has developed and redeveloped properties throughout the United States. We've also developed retail concepts, two of which became highly successful concepts known as Movie Max Video and Car Choice. We bring properties to an institutional quality that benefits tenants, the community, and our partners. Our developments have included multiple retail projects, including loft apartments throughout the United States, car dealerships in Michigan, Texas, and Florida, several medical properties for Beaumont Health Systems in Southeast Michigan, Blockbuster video stores across the Midwest, East Coast, and Southeast U.S., and an office and parking structure in Detroit. Do I need to manually flip this?
I'll
got
take
it.
it for you. Yep.
So our primary goal for this project is to create a beautiful mixed-use property that serves as an amenity for the neighboring communities and provides modern, high-end housing options for young and career professionals and empty nesters. We know this is unique to Sterling Heights, but innovative projects like this are what professionals are gravitating to and where the demand is at these days. We want to create a neighborhood shopping center targeting a diverse and beneficial tenant mix for the community. Think a specialty grocery store with lots of prepared foods, coffee shop, well-known restaurants, and convenient neighborhood services, such as a nail salon or a barber shop or an urgent care or veterinary clinic. This is not a power center like you would see up and down Hall Road. It's really the opposite. We want to create an easily accessible property with public amenity spaces for our immediate neighbors on Starrett, Wilsack, Meringue, and Brockton. There'll be pedestrian and bicycle access to and throughout the site. We like to make our projects walkable. There'll be a pocket park and dog walk area, and there'll be outdoor seating and dining spaces. Chris already went through some of the details, but just to reiterate, there's the commercial portion, which is roughly 40,000 square feet of retail. And then there's the residential component with 158 apartments featuring studio, one-bedroom, and two-bedroom units. It will be high-end urban-style living with many amenities. There'll be a club room, entertainment center, business center, and fitness center, outdoor patios, outdoor terraces, fire pits, and grilling areas. It will be pet-friendly with a dog walk area and a pocket park. And there'll be secure garage parking with electric vehicle charging stations and Amazon storage lockers. There will be pedestrian pathways to access the retail throughout the property. And we'll have on-site security and a security camera system, along with an electronic access system for the residential building. It will be a safe and secure property. And then the parking. We have 450 parking spaces between the garage and the surface, along with an additional 34 drive-through stacking spaces that are not accounted for in that parking count. And then we have 56 land bank spaces that can be brought online if additional parking is needed. So for the amenities of our project, there's the retail portion to provide neighborhood services. And we want to offer quality apartment living targeting young and career professionals and empty nesters, many of whom leave Sterling Heights for cities that offer modern, urban-style, amenity-rich, mixed-use projects. We'll provide unique and beautiful architecture along Hall Road. And then mixed-use projects have some inherent benefits. They encourage high-quality design. After all, people will be living there and shopping there. There's internal traffic capture. You can live, dine, and go to the market without getting into your vehicle. You won't have to, it'll generally lead to a reduction in traffic, and this is environmentally friendly. Then it'll be pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and it will promote a village-style mix of retail, restaurants, services, and multifamily housing. You can comfortably walk from one store to another throughout the property. There will also be improved site drainage. We'll connect the property to the drainage system via underground pipe sized for the 100-year storm event. And we'll have electric vehicle charging stations, not just for our apartment residents, but for the general public as well. Something that's really important to us is our neighbors. And we know a lot of them are here, and we have a lot of respect for our neighbors. And it's very important to us that we met with them and understood their feedback and their concerns. And so we did that. I want to go through some of their concerns. The building height of the apartments. The apartments have been set back an additional 20 feet from when we started, and we've impeded the line of sight into neighbors' yards. There was concerns about flooding. The stormwater management is designed for the 100-year flood event. What types of trees and maintenance would there be? We're going to save as many trees on the perimeter as we can, and then we're going to plant more additional trees that are very tall in height for screening, along with a 6-foot masonry wall to block the properties around the perimeter. Then there were concerns about tenants from the apartments walking dogs down Starrett Street. So we've added a dog park area and some pocket parks within the property. Concern about noise from the loading zones and smell from dumpsters. The market loading zone and dumpsters will be interior to the building. All the other dumpsters will be enclosed and set away from the property lines, exceeding the zoning requirement. Then light pollution intruding on neighbors' properties. We did photometric studies which show that no light from the property fixtures will reach the property line. And then lastly, the line stacking at drive-throughs, which we've provided or done in conjunction with the city ordinance. So our project has evolved quite a bit from when we started and where we are at now. And so I want to go through some of that evolution of our project. We took into account our neighbors' feedback and concerns along with the planning commission and our city planner. We've decreased the apartment building footprint and size to be 20 feet further away from the residents to the south. We are now 80 feet away instead of 60, where we were originally. We've decreased the parking spaces. We've increased the green belt to create a pocket park, and we've land bank parking. We've added a dog walk area and landscape buffer along the south property line. And we've added landscaping on the west side of the apartment building to increase the landscape buffer on the west side. The green belt on the west side increased from 11 feet to 21 feet. At that point, the green space increased by over 5,000 square feet. We didn't stop there. After our planning commission meeting on February 9th, we made additional improvements and understood more of the feedback from our neighbors and from our commission. We land banked more parking at the northeast and southwest corners. We reduced the parking from 488 to 450, with now 56 land bank spaces. Our recreation area increased by over 14,000 square feet, bringing us to a total of just under 44,000 square feet. And that doesn't include the 12,000 square feet of balcony space for the apartment residents. We've added potential bioswale locations throughout the property. And we have outdoor recreation space that's part of that square footage I mentioned earlier, above the market and in some other areas of the property, both interior and exterior. Something else that's come up quite a bit is the traffic, and specifically the impact it may have on Sterrett Street. So we decided that we did an independent study on traffic, and specifically studied Sterrett Street as well. Trip generation is fairly minimal and is generated by the retail portion of our project, which is passed by traffic. People, for example, this is people that are already driving by the property that may stop in and get a coffee. That is not a new trip, but a trip that was already occurring on Hall Road. Residential as a whole is generally a very low traffic generator and one of the lower density uses. So an independent study concluded that traffic is negatively impacted if there is no access via Sterrett Street. No access increases traffic on all surrounding neighborhoods. Access to the development via Sterrett does provide the best overall circulation. It reduces the traffic volumes and intersection impacts on the adjacent roadways and intersections, including Canal, Brockton, and Hall Road. Access from Sterrett for the adjacent neighborhoods to the south provides safer access and circulation. And if there is no curb cut on Sterrett Street, people leaving the center will simply turn right onto Hall Road and then make a right on Sterrett Street, another 20 feet down the road. The study recommended that the Sterrett Street driveway be provided. We have Jacob Swanson from Fleiss and Vandenbrink who can answer any more detailed traffic questions today if you guys have any. So on February 9th, Planning Commission voted to recommend approval of our project 6-1. Generally speaking, they thought it was an innovative and exciting project, and it was something that young people are gravitating towards and is an attractive project for the city. It was also mentioned that this is a better project than previously approved hotels and retail. So with that, we believe we bring a lot of community benefits with our mixed-use development. Mixed-use projects better serve the community by providing internal traffic capture. We'll provide a neighborhood shopping center on Hall Road amidst all the big box centers that are difficult to get in and out of. It will provide much-needed housing for younger entrepreneurial workers, young families, and empty nesters, all which are desirable neighbors. It will become a gateway for young families to enter Sterling Heights, many of which will become long-term permanent residents of the city. will improve the site drainage. There will be on-site security and a security camera system along with the electronic access system. Again, a safe and secure property. And will generate economic development and revenue for Sterling Heights. This will generate hundreds of construction jobs. It will generate long-term permanent employment, and it will increase the tax base for the city. In closing, we received input from our neighbors and planning commissioners and made significant modifications over the last almost year and a half as a result. While we respect that some are opposed to this project, it will bring many community benefits. Apartment renters of this project will be young and career professionals, young families, and empty nesters, all people you'd want to call your neighbor. Our tenant mix will provide neighborhood services that will serve as a benefit to the community. Neighbors on Starrett, Meringue, Wilsek, and Brockton can go shopping without having to drive down Hall Road into a big box shopping center. The height has been brought up as a concern. We've done everything possible to keep the apartment building as far away from the residents as possible, and we've actually exceeded the setback requirement by 20 feet, an additional 33%. Studies do show that there will be little to no visibility into neighbors' yards. Hall Road has been expanded into an 8-lane highway at Hall and N53, and it's simply not viable for single-family homes. The commercial portion is already zoned for this use, and there's a great need and demand for this type of housing. So we'll bring a new, innovative product category to Sterling Heights that is highly desired nationwide. We're evolving with the times, and I can honestly say this is the type of project I would love to live in. This property will inevitably be developed, but unlike previously approved retail and hotel projects, which bring a transient crowd, we are looking to bring and retain new neighbors into the city. We respectfully request a positive vote on our project. Happy to answer any questions you may have, and thank you again for your time this evening.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that. So as I mentioned, I did open the public hearing, so I will take comments and questions from the audience, and then if the city council is going to deliberate on this tonight, we will call you back up for questions at that time, okay?
Thank you, Mayor Taylor.
So we have a big crowd here tonight. By show of hands, about how many people intend on speaking? Okay. If you didn't raise your hand and you decide you do want to speak, you're of course welcome to. Okay, so I just wanted to get a sense. We have a 4-minute time limit. When you come up to the podium, there will be a light, green, yellow, and then red, and there's a timer that counts down from 4 minutes. So I just ask that when you get to the end of your 4 minutes, you try to wrap up your comments within a few seconds, 5 or 6 seconds. I'll try not to cut you off, but we do have a lot of people here tonight. Want to be respectful of everybody's time and make sure we get through this without a whole lot of delays. Again, I respectfully ask that you keep your applause, keep any comments from the audience if you're not at the podium to yourself. I know there's going to be an urge to applaud, and every time I say this, people ignore me anyways, but I can promise you that the applauding has zero impact on anybody's vote up here. We are going to listen intently to everything that you say. Some of us will be taking notes, others maybe will not. We will promise not to interrupt you from our seats up here. We just ask the same courtesy when we begin deliberating on this. So I find it helpful to me to just move from one side to the other so that I don't lose track of who wants to speak and who's already spoken. So I'm going to start on my left, your right, and ask anybody on this side of the chamber, if there's anyone who'd like to speak, please raise your hand. Come on up, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Taylor and City Council. My name's Joe Znoy. I live on 34330 Centennial Court. I would like to say first that I'm very heartened with the amount of community that has turned out for this meeting, and I think that's very important. And I would encourage everyone, even if this vote is postponed, to not be deterred and come back and voice your opinions. It's very important. One thing I've seen with a lot of developers, and there was a very amusing analogy made at the last city council meeting about when developers bring forth a proposal, it's always something bigger and greater than they would imagine ever being accepted. And then they tend to pare it down. And the analogy made at the last meeting was such that, you know, if I went to my doctor and they said, well, you've got a problem, we're going to have to amputate your leg. And then I would say, oh, that's such terrible news. But then I go back to get an opinion a few weeks later and they say, don't worry, we just have to amputate your toe. And then I would say, oh, that's even better. So I think it's a common strategy used by a lot of developers, and, you know, people should be aware of that. And I know there's a lot of talk about the need for housing, and, you know, I think that's commendable, but I think there are other forces and motives at play that people should be aware of. And I know the federal government is very interested in, you know, affirmatively furthering fair housing, which means that, you know, the communities that do accept these proposals do get federal grants from HUD and transportation things. I know if the current administration had their way, based on Mr. Booker's musings, it would, you know, followed to its logical end, would bring the end of single-family zoning altogether. And of course, the other factor people tend to overlook is, I think, ultimately, this is sort of a way to change demographics in order to favor a certain political faction. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention is, I think it's very interesting for citizens to go to the Macomb County campaign finance site, which is something that's totally open to the public. And I find it very enlightening to go and see where different developers have given their money in terms of campaign donations. And you kind of see a web. And that's all I've got to say, and I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, sir. Staying on my left, anyone else? If not, I'll move to the center. Okay, come on up, sir.
Hi, my name is Paul Michael, live on Wilsec Court. And one of my biggest problems I'd like to bring out tonight is the fact that you all are using PUD ordinances to accomplish your problems with building these this housing shortages you claim you have, or crisis. And a lot of you all have been around for a long time in service to the community and that, which is great, and all your messages are great. But in regards to some of these PUD ordinances and what you intend to build, it seems like you're not yourselves, I guess is the best way to put it. And it's like anything regarding an ordinance is just thrown out the door. You get to do whatever you want. And these people come out and build whatever they want. And they're builders, but building where they're at, it's a residential community by any measure. What they say about stairs and all that, the speed limit's 25 miles an hour. And it's only going to create more havoc there. But really, it's just going to create more havoc on the whole area. And I know you got to get whatever you think done regarding housing. But you all been around long enough. If you got a crisis, you got to be part of it, and you got to own up to it, and find a way to get the problem resolved. If you got to go to a PUD ordinance, that's pretty bad. That's all I'd like to say tonight. That's all.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else on the left? If not, I'll move to the center portion. Anyone in the center? Yes, ma'am, I'll take you first.
Hi, my name is Lynn Rossick, and I live on Wanda, which is far from the project.
but I wanted to address it because of the traffic problem that I think that's gonna be on Hall Road with this. The project that you're building, the design is very beautiful, but I think it needs to be somewhere like in Delray Beach, Florida. Down there, property's booming down in Florida. This is not the place for it. And what I notice is my friends live in downtown Ferndale, and their house is adjacent to the new parking garage they put up. When I go to their house, all I see is bright lights. I just think it's gonna create a lot of light pollution for the residents, which this is like a residential neighborhood, but you're putting a project in there that's supposed to be for all the people that are gonna go shopping, which we're not gonna go shopping there. I mean, it's a nice idea, maybe if you need to get a little item, but this is not a shopping area. This is a little retail area with a couple little coffee shops that you can't even fill all the coffee shops that you have, they're all closing. Then they say they're gonna make a lot of employment opportunities. You can't even get employees now to work. I can't get I go to Kroger's, I can't get my groceries because there's no employees. So how are you gonna fill a place when you can't get employees now? So it's just like, it is a beautiful project, but this is just not the place for it. That's all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the middle? I'll take you next, sir.
Hi, my name's Brad Martin. I live on Meringue, probably one of the most effective houses as where on two different sides of my properties, or on my property, this property will affect. We bought the house as well as many did in the neighborhood, realizing that part of that property is zoned commercial, but I think there's a reason that part of it's zoned residential. It's just the developers have tried to address it again and again, but the structure is just too big. 5 stories is too big for that space. I ask you to please try to envision this in your backyard. I got 3 kids, I got a wife, who all hang out in our pool on my deck, and I just picture being able to look down in there constantly. They did propose larger green spaces and very tall green giant arbs and other trees. And as a professional in that industry, it's just not sustainable to provide any type of privacy in between the house and this 5-story complex that really I don't think should be there. And as the first gentleman pointed out, I mean, you know, this room isn't massive, but the crowd that's here is a testimony to the fact that the residents, especially the residents who back up to this property, really don't want this to be built. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to sometimes have an issue, is that it doesn't feel like you take that into consideration, and I'm sure you do. But that's just how we feel in a lot of circumstances when it comes to this. It's how we felt with the previous meetings we had before. So, my 2 cents for you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the middle section? I'll take you next, ma'am.
I just heard about this, and hopefully I'm okay to speak. I'm from the north side of Hall Road, actually, but just wanted to come because my concern, I have a daughter and myself who drive down Hall Road all the time, and just wanted to point out that that there's 4 intersections on Hall Road that are the most dangerous intersections in all of Macomb County, starting with Van Dyke, I believe Shaner, Hayes, Romeo Plank. The traffic is so high that I just couldn't imagine. I think he said 455 car parking spot that he was intending to add in there, and I just feel like the lady who spoke also made a lot of good points. It's difficult to get stores staffed, so adding more stores, more, and more traffic just seems like a really bad idea for the quality of the neighborhood. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Take you next, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Amanda Pisarski at 8815 Canal. So I have a couple points, so hopefully I can get to all of them. Being on Canal, I have a little bit of a different perspective. I'm right by the park, so one is safety. I'm a mom, And there are a ton of kids that walk, that play. We already have a problem with traffic on Canal. The speeding is horrible. As you know, there's cops that wait at the park on Starrett. It's a huge problem because it's a straight cross on Canal. There's a ton of problems, and it's already loud. You guys did amazing work on Canal and expanded it and fixed it, but it's still so busy. And it's also so busy on Starrett. As you guys know, you fix that first turnaround when you are coming from Van Dyke on Hull Road. You fix that, that's awesome, but because of that, I take Brockton and I take Starrett. You cannot even get to the turnaround when you do Brockton. You can't even get to it. I have a hard time already getting to work. So if you add that, it's just gonna be so much more congested. As they were saying too, it is a couple lanes, but it is just too busy. Same thing with the speeding. But not only that, I think it's amazing. It sounds beautiful. But when you think of our little area, it's not that. These are homes that have been passed down to generations. This is a family. There's the park right there. You guys put so much money and energy into that. That's just kind of the feeling. Everyone just walks around and it's families. I feel like it's gonna kind of take away from that. I think it's amazing. It can go somewhere else in the area. I just think that is just not a good spot. Not only that, I know he was saying environmentally good, I guess. However, if you live on Starrett, you know that is the only part where there are woods left. There are a bunch of deer and wildlife. It is beautiful when you drive down. I can't even imagine if that is in your backyard. It is amazing. But then you're gonna displace all of the animals of the little spot that's left of woods. So those are my concerns. I think it'll take away from the feeling, the safety. It is so busy on Canal. When you do your research, you can see there are cops always there. There are speed traps. There's so much of a problem of speeding. If you add that, it's gonna cause so much more problems. Starrett is already so busy, as the people who live on Starrett know. You can't even get out. So I think it would also cause more problems when you are reselling your home because no one wants to be there. We're gonna be probably moving soon because it's just too busy. It's too loud. I agree. The light pollution, the sound and everything. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the middle section? You first, sir.
My name's Steve Collard. I live at 4479 Duffield, which is one street over from Brockton. And I walk this neighborhood. These streets are all connected near the park, as she just said. This project is too high, it's too long, and it's too wide for this property. It's a beautiful project. They've pushed every boundary. And even though they say things like, we've extended the number of trees, it can't compensate for a 5-story building in front of all of these homes, right up to the property line of these homes. So my biggest concern is just the size of the project. Having 3 drive-through windows that close to the neighborhood, the noise pollution just from that alone will make this a really rough place to live. The retail is not set back very far from the road. So the green belt on the Hall Road side is dangerously small. And so they're asking for exceptions for all of these measurements. They're asking for exceptions for signage, which hasn't been discussed. They're asking for exceptions for parking. And so I'm just asking you, as City Council, to represent us, the citizens, to live within the guidelines we have, to use the zoning that we have. I think many people have said we don't expect that the frontage on Hall Road will stay woods, that it will be developed, but this development's too high, too long, too wide. And so I'm asking you I don't think the Planning Commission has answered these questions, especially the traffic and the impact on the houses that surround the property. So I'm asking you to listen and to make sure they do their job and be able to alleviate these concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Take you in the back, and I'll get you next, ma'am. Well, no, I'll get in the black, I'll get you next.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hi, my name is Randy Kapanka, and I reside at 44645 Starrett Street with my husband and our 5 children. I first want to start by saying that this council has a difficult choice to make, and I appreciate your willingness to listen to our community. A little over 8 years ago, when our realtor showed us the house we now live in, I breathed a sigh of relief. I knew this was our home. And over the past 8 years, it has been a joy to live there for countless reasons. We have grown our family in this neighborhood and have made efforts to improve and maintain our home and property. We are a tight-knit community of proud Sterling Heights residents. And as you can see by the turnout, we encourage one another to stay abreast in matters of our city and community. Our more established residents have welcomed new, younger families to our neighborhood, such as my husband and I, encouraging us to have the same pride in this small community as they do. And even though we're nuzzled in a unique area between 2 major roads, Canal and Hall, our little streets such as Starrett, Deneau, Alice Court, and Meringue take pride in making our neighborhood delightful and welcoming to drive through. Our children have the pleasure of watching hawks make nests and hunt almost every season in our neighborhood. And we have does and fawns that travel out of the wooded parcel and down our streets into our yards. And while this is just a bonus, it has been a very unique and special experience to share with our kids. I could go on all night with reasons why I love living where we live. And my favorite reason is that I can let my 5 children go out and play in our yard, knowing they're safe. Unfortunately, that will not be the case if we have a 5-story, 150-unit apartment complex go up 100 yards away from our property. I will no longer have the peace of mind I have now. There will be an 80-foot tall building with people I do not know, able to watch my children while they play, and I could even go looking into our room where we eat, into our dining room. Although this complex with 9 retail stores and 3 drive-through restaurants sounds great to some, to our community, it means even busier roads with cars driving down our streets at even faster paces. It means having to stare at out our windows at a giant concrete monstrosity every day. And as a mother, it means people that I know nothing about being able to see into my yard and into my dining room. As a resident of Sterling Heights, it means the pride in my community is diminished and the trust in our elected officials destroyed. I know that residents and retail stores mean more revenue, and the 150-unit complex means more taxpayer money. However, there is a community of faithful taxpayers here tonight that say no thank you. This will destroy everything we've worked hard to maintain and preserve in our community. Respectfully, I ask you to vote no on allowing this parcel of land to be used for something like this. I also want to respectfully remind the council that you were all voted in by citizens of Sterling Heights. Citizens like us chose you and deemed you worthy to hold the positions you have. Please represent us tonight. Please, I implore you to represent us. Please vote no on this multi-use development in our neighborhood. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Ann Armstrong. I live on Brockton, 44840 Brockton in the middle. I can't really say a whole bunch more than what everybody else has said, except for I don't want this development. When I look out my backyard, and I would have to look up at this building, that would just be stifling to me. Would you guys want this in your backyard? I'm asking you. How about you guys? Would you like to walk out and sit on your patio and have a building with everybody looking at you? You say there's a park. We have a park down the street. We don't need another park. We have dogs that walk down the street. We have people who walk down the street. We know everybody. I know people on Meringue. I know people on Sterrett. I know people everywhere. Yes, we know that you guys are going to develop this. Honestly, I know this. But do you need a 5-story building with somebody sitting on their balcony looking at you? Would you want that? We don't want that. If you want to put a medical building, we understand. But to have businesses, shopping centers, they're closed on the other side of Hall Street. You want nails done? We can go right across the street. Who's going to walk to the store? Nobody walks to the store. Have you ever come down Brockton during rush hour? Come on down. You have police officers sitting at my corner, and I bless you for that. I have a 5-year-old grandson who has cerebral palsy, and what happens if he's going to walk out into that street one day? Well, the traffic from this building comes down my street. There's just a lot going on. The deers, the animals, the possums, the foxes, the cat colonies. We all take care of everything. We're asking you to think about what you would want in your backyard, nothing more. You guys are building something on 15 and Van Dyke, I believe. Something else is coming up right over here by the hotel. I mean, there's just a lot of buildings. Are you telling me nobody else has nowhere else to live but in our little 2-acre plot there? All I'm saying to you is think what we're thinking. I moved here because of the city of Sterling Heights, because it was a great city. But why would you want to put some kind of a building that nobody wants up? If you're going to develop it, make sure that it's low. People don't have to look at it. It's not going to endanger our children. It's not going to make the animals have to go really too far away. We do know they're going to have to be scooted, but let's be reasonable. And we did vote you all in because we feel that you do represent us. So we, as you can see them all, are asking you to represent us and say no.
Anyone else from the, yes?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Pedri. I live on Cologne. Everybody that came before me has great points, and I think there was one point that we're kind of missing. And when I looked at the plans, when I moved to Sterling Heights in the early 80s, every subdivision was built by when subdivisions came to the Planning Commission, they didn't get built unless they had a park in them. I live in a 2-block subdivision, and we have Ben Hadley Park. We want to put 160 or 158 1- and 2-bedroom apartments here. Where are the kids going to go? I know that these are going to be luxury apartments, but the kids are still going to be here. We can't put them on the roof of a building. Would you want your kid playing on the roof of a building in today's heat? It's just not unheard of. We have to remember our heritage of Sterling Heights. Sterling Heights was built with the families in mind. Everywhere you go, there's a huge park. There's no place for these kids to go that are going to live here. They're going to be dodging cops, cars everywhere. The most they've got is probably a fenced-in dog walk that they'll be safe to walk on. Other than that, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the center portion? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Linda Council. I live on Sterrett. I've been there for about 25 years. I agree with everybody else. Everybody else is here to say no to this development. It is a beautiful development. It doesn't belong on the end of Sterrett on Hall Road. Go to Lakeside. There's property everywhere. Don't do it at the end of our street. Sterrett Street is a highway. I can't tell you how many people speed on that road. I've called the police on them, It's going to get worse if this development goes there. If you're going on from Sterrett to Hall Road, it literally will take you 5 minutes to get onto Hall Road because of the traffic. There's going to be more traffic, and if you say there's not, that's a bunch of crap, and you know it. So, I mean, it's just, I think I speak for a lot of people and everybody who's been here. We don't want this development. Yes, we know the property is going to be developed, but not to this size. It needs to be rethought. And again, we voted you people in here. We'll see what happens next election. So please vote no. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else in the middle? Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name's Jim Bauer. You guys probably have seen a few of my emails come across. I'm an architect, so I try to look at this in many different ways, both as a professional and as a resident. I live on Wilsec, about in the middle of the property. I sent you an email on Friday, and I'm gonna take a more technical approach. And one of the things I looked at is that under the PUD language, it refers to special approval land use, and it says that it shall conform to the special land use statute under 12.02, which brings me to 12.02D for under fast food, and I'm right now specifically talking about Building A. The requirements are that it be 500 feet between freestanding and other restaurants, unless there's a 120-foot right-of-way separation. And number 4, it says a 300-foot distance minimum between residentially zoned property to the drive-through lanes. Now, poor Mr. Martin here, he's 39 feet from the back of the building. The drive-through is closer yet. So if you go back to where it talks about it shall comply, obviously this doesn't comply. So you're not even following your own ordinance, okay? Even under regulatory flexibility in the section 22.03E of the PUD ordinance, it talks about that you have the ability to grant variances or modifications to setbacks and things like that. However, when you go to the other section that says it shall comply, either they conflict or it's not within the scope of the regulatory flexibility, okay? So I'm afraid that if you would approve this, that you might cause yourself to be subject to litigation if the residents deem that fit. I know there's already been talking about lawyers and stuff. So the other thing that I gave Mr. McLeod today was the spot zoning. Back in March, I started doing research on it, but before that, when Mr. Shamami wanted to provide us with hotels, a gas station, some retail, one of the planning commission members asked about spot zoning, and Mr. Andrews was there. And he said, well, how does this fare out in litigation? He said, not favorable. Okay, now zoning governs use. Okay, the PUD also governs use, even though it's within a different zoning. Okay, so you have the RM3 and the C3, you're trying to put in C1 and R80. So now, since you're trying to do that, you're specifying a different use, it almost fits into that spot zoning. And what I did is I took the Michigan State University extension form, and I talked to a couple of their planners, and I know some of you probably have gone to some of their seminars for planning. And so if you look, you know, well, quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, you get the picture, right? So obviously we're trying to put 5 pounds of poo in a 3-pound bag. I'm sure you guys have heard that saying before. A lot of my neighbors, you know, they're unhappy. I'm the technical guy. I'm the one that does all the research and stuff like that in the zoning ordinance. And I know you've all got my PowerPoint with a lot of that information, pictures, et cetera, okay? And I ask that you consider, you know, if you were there, I asked you this weekend or this 4th of July while you're barbecuing to take a look and imagine this building behind you. And I know that I told you before that doctors bury their mistakes, carpenters use moldings, and architects plant ivy, or in this case trees, to hide their mistakes. So Jason did a great job in the design. I've known him for 25 years. He was a student at Macomb where I teach architecture. And I love the building. I just don't like where it's at. I think everything else is, you know, 2 stories or less in that whole section of Sterling Heights. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you, sir. Anyone else in the center portion? Mr. Nelson?
You guys did a fantastic job on 783 pages of material that was given to everybody. It was given to the council also. My name's Ken Nelson. I live on Firesteel Drive, Clinton River Road, and Shaner. This is another one of the situations, and I'd like to, if it's at all possible, if they can put that picture up, it will help Mr. Martin explain what he's looking at on end of Moraine. He's going to have dumpsters on two sides of his property. Did that get up there? He's where the white truck is. Also, you can see here, that is the building, the office building that is off of Hall Road. That's a 6-foot fence, brick fence. And as you're driving up Moraine, how much of that building do you see? I know we're going to have trees, be more trees. But again, the 5-story building, it doesn't belong here. Every time I get up here on these items, I tell you to listen to the people. There's a big portion of this was all the letters, the support, the petitions. You all have copies of that. I hope you go through 783 pages and read all of it. I did. This, as I've said before, if you're going to take a piece of property and you're going to put it as a PUD is a poor excuse for a development. It's let's do whatever somebody wants to build. Poor excuse. There is 14, even after they get done with what they're doing, there are 14, again, zoning variances that they need. The biggest one, overall site area, based on the proposed density of residential units on the site, a total of 650,000 square feet of total site area is required versus the proposed 435,000 square feet. That's 33%. That's 200,000 feet. That's not a little amount. We need more space, and that kind of gives Mr. Bauer's putting 5 pounds in a 3-pound bag. 14. Look at those. They're right there in the agenda statement. Planned unit developments. This property does not belong here. I agree with the fact that it's spot zoning, no matter how you do it. You need to do something with this PUD requirements too, and these PUD ordinances. I know you're going to discuss that at a later time. Being a planning person, I remember Mr. Yanez, right there. Mr. Yanez saying that when you discuss putting apartments in Shaner and 14 Mile, that he said he wasn't a planner, but he'd taken the courses to do that. None of you are planners. You have too much responsibility in this one, and I hope that you turn it down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nelson. Anyone else in the center portion like to speak? There is, yes, you, sir.
Donnie Shaner, 44746 Marine Drive. That picture that was just up there, that building wasn't there when we moved in, 2002. Shortly after that building was put in. A couple years ago, that building was part of a cause of Marine Drive flooding numerous times within a month. So you guys fixed that, thanks to Mr. Nadi. You know, this this gentleman wants to put up a beautiful building, looks good, it's on paper. There are many other buildings or many other locations in Sterling Heights, which, by the way, we've all read how safe Sterling Heights has been, is one of the safest communities in probably the United States. Let's keep it that way. We've had the drainage issue. Canal Road, you guys just repaired that a little bit ago. With all this traffic coming off of, because of Hall Road, we're finding more heavy traffic coming down Brockton, coming down Sterrett, coming down Van Dyke, onto Clinton River, onto Canal. I don't think the weight from these trucks, these 18-wheelers with double axles and all that, can withstand that for a very long period of time. We got Lakeside. You know, you're more than welcome to take Lakeside. You can do exactly what you want right there. It's a huge building in the middle. You got tons of parking. You can, you know, you can have residents living in there. There's so many stories. You could probably make a whole community in there and put a pool in if you want. We got Dooley's, where Dooley's used to be. There's a huge chunk of property right there. I don't know if anything's going on with that there. We got the old school, McGahey. There's another piece of property right there. All this is ample spacing. You don't need to tear down, cut down trees, take away wildlife, take away the things that we're all looking at day in and day out. I mean, I don't know where you folks live, but how often do you have a deer in your backyard or walking right down the middle of the street and cutting through somebody else's yard because they don't want to go to Canal? So, you know, we got light traffic, as we've been saying, and Sterrett. I don't know what you're going to do with Sterrett if this goes through, because Sterrett was just repaved. You got kids going all over the place trying to play. Traffic's going to be terrible, and I don't know, you know, with the traffic coming out of this facility that's proposed, I can't really see where that's going to withstand all these truck traffic and all that. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else in the center portion? Now I'll move on to my right side. Take you in the front, sir.
I'm Mike Baroni, live at 11122 Wilsett Court, and a few things I'd like to point out. I'm not completely opposed to something getting developed there at some point, and I like some of the things that they're doing, but they have 158 studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom places, and they have 172 parking spaces. So that's a little bit more than one per unit, but you have to expect that people are gonna have 2 cars there, so they're not gonna have enough space for parking. And this whole thing that they're saying about not generating any more traffic doesn't really make sense, because the whole point of a mixed-use area is that there's residential and commercial. You automatically have to have increased traffic because of the residents, because you're trying to bring new people into the city, not move people in the city from one house to another. And it doesn't make any sense to have a commercial location if you're not getting traffic to it. You're gonna have to have more traffic if you're putting commercial in there, if you want your commercial to be successful. So I just want to point that out, and since no one's done that, I'll let you go on that.
Okay, thank you, sir. You in the front row first.
Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm a part of the same residence. I'll try to make this short. First thing I'd like to point out is by allowing this building to go up, you guys are setting the standard of what the next person who wants to put a big building up is going to be able to do, and that's in the same city. So one thing to keep in mind. Also, the Phoenix on John R. and 16, which is their other development, I'm pretty sure is further away from the nearest residence, and it's 2 stories instead of 5. So that's one thing. And then I think it's important to keep in mind the view that everybody on the south side of Wilsec will have of this building. They're gonna see more than half of this building above the tree line from inside their kitchens, their living rooms, their garage. I like to sit and work in my garage, like to sit in my living room. People's kids probably wanna sit in the living room, play around. These people are gonna be looking in all the time. So you just gotta keep in mind all the other people that are gonna have that same experience. Another thing, I've been in this house ever since I was a baby, and I grew up on that street. I got the full experience as a child. And I wouldn't want it to be any other way and have something else that's gonna affect it from being safe in a good neighborhood to be in. So for the woman that's got 5 children on Sterrett and Wilsek, I mean, I feel for her. I wouldn't want anything else for her kids than an awesome neighborhood to grow up in that's safe. So my only other thing would be to keep in mind the foot traffic that this is going to promote to go down Wilsek just for a casual walk. We have some people that do it, don't mind at all, but I feel that people that are gonna be living in these apartments are less invested in the community, that people that have a home would be. So they might be a little more careless going down that street when just going for a casual walk or doing whatever. And we've already seen a lot of that happen. I've gone down Sterrett and I've seen Taco Bell bags full of garbage thrown out onto Sterrett. Nobody likes that. Who knows, somebody's gonna be walking down there and just decide to throw whatever they got on the court, whatever. So that's all I got.
Thank you, sir. I'll take you next, Mr. Smith.
I'm Paul Smith. I've been a property owner here in Sterling Heights since 1977. The thing about it, I started out here in a R60 residential house, and at the time I moved in here, that was kind of a low-end, entry-level form of housing. Beyond the R60, there were some two-story apartments, but these apartments had lawns and parking lots and swimming pools and community centers. And really in the last 45 years, every development here is averaging down the city, that we've come in with higher and higher density, less amenities. And it's really just not fair to the developers. Say across the street from where I live, there's a couple apartments, and I mean, they're palatial royal estates compared to this. This is really coming up with a new low. This developer has no right whatsoever to do this. No right at all. He has a right to go out there with his plan and take it to the building desk, and if it complies, they'll rubber stamp it and he builds it. But this is built on 14 variances, that is violating every ordinance, code, zoning, every rule we've got. He's begging the neighbors for permission to do this, and the neighbors say no. And if the neighbors say no, no means no. That's why you have a hearing, not to just to sit through this and say yes. Sterling Heights was built by people who left the inner city to live in the suburbs, and now city council is bringing the inner city here. So, you know, what's this? Blockbusting. Essentially, Mrs. Koski's familiar with that. Mr. Romano was, to inject an undesirable element into the neighborhood, get people moving. They move north, people move up, and the realtors make money. Everything goes downhill. This whole talk of a postponement, that's an assault against the will of the people. That Mr. Radke took the night off, but we got 100 people that came here to this meeting. So what are you going to do? Just grind this down till there's 10 people at the meeting, and then put it through? On the old Mad Men TV show, they had a series of issues like that where the ladies were against a development, and they gave them their way, and then when they were gone, they passed it at a smaller meeting, and that really looks like what's happening here. That Irving Street, that was a well-done piece of work by the people, but it really smacks of a throwaway development. That developer came in with a totally unacceptable plan that he knew would be rejected, so they got it rejected. So city council doesn't always say yes. See, once in 10 years, they said no to a developer. So I guess we're going to bring up Irving Street as an example that that we don't always say yes. If we feel an obligation to have housing for the world, this developer can just go down Van Dyke, past 696, past 10 Mile, past 8 Mile, and there's miles of brownfield development, the dilapidated, empty lots all along Van Dyke. He can clear some land between 6 Mile and 7 Mile and put this in where people really need it and want it. You know, if we're obligated to house the world, you know, it's a big world. You can go a little farther south in my senatorial district, south of 8 Mile, where people need housing, and tear down some houses and tear down some slums and build something we need. But it's easier to defoliate a forest than it is to clear slums. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't get too ahead of yourself, though. All right, you next, sir.
My name is Bruce Houston. I live at 44643 Moraine Drive. I'm ex-military, and I took the oath, just like every one of you did, to uphold and defend the Constitution and have a republic form of government. And you're supposed to be a servant to the people, not us serve you and your bad budget that you got yourself in trouble with, because that's why you want money and these buildings and stuff like that. This is a residential area. That's why people move here, because they want their kids to be safe, to play in the yard, to play on the street, and raise a family. But you're gonna make it into a hellhole, because I've lived here for 20 years now, and I've watched the decline. Decline is like, you know, it used to be a nice city. And I'm actually from Livonia, which was a nice city too, still is. But this place has turned into a hellhole, because you're not listening, you're not serving the people. We told you already, we do not want a 5-story building there. The highest we want you to go is 2 stories. Because you're gonna develop it, that's fine. But you are putting 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag.
Sir, please keep.
Yeah,
don't need
you're virgin
profanity.
airs, right?
No,
So,
we don't need profanity. Everybody else here has been
Yeah.
able to make their.
Well, I didn't vote
comments
for
without
you.
Being disrespectful.
I know that for a fact, because you're a libtard. And,
Okay, sir.
so I'll name call all you Democrats.
I'll tell you, this isn't helping your cause.
I don't
So
care.
if you-
I don't
if
care,
you
because you're
want,
not gonna represent
please
me anyway.
do
You haven't
what
represented me the
your-
whole time you've been in there.
Your neighbors have been very respectful. They've stayed
Well,
on
they shouldn't
topic.
be,
They're not
because you're not
calling
respectful
names.
for us. You're the
ask that.
servant to us. So anyway, there's my time.
All right, who'd like to be next? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, I'm Suzanne McElreath. I live on Alice Court and have since 1977. I am very familiar with this area. Not much has changed from the Planning Commission meeting regarding this development a few months ago, certainly nothing significant. They turfed it to you to make the decision. Fact is, we who live in this area still don't want this behemoth on the corner adding more traffic, noise, and foot traffic in our neighborhood. Why anyone would choose to live on the corner of Hall Road and essentially M53 is beyond me. The traffic, the gunning of the engines, the screaming motorcycles has only increased to an intolerable level now. We who live there and pay taxes, a lot more taxes than apartment dwellers, are not naive enough to think this corner would never be developed. But a 5-story apartment building with stores? Really? Have you seen the corner? Have you lived there, walked it? And who moves in when these high-income professionals move on due to job change, job loss, high cost of rent, and noise, incredible noise? Make no mistake, in this failing economy, it will happen. Please reconsider this development and consider the homeowners. All the adjustments, all the testing of the area and stuff is merely perfume on a pig. This thing is too big for that corner. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Mark Sharman. I live at 44638 Morang. We've been there for 36 years, 38 years, something like that. Anyways, back in 2013, we had a major flood issue. And Ms. Zaccaro came out, Mr. Vanderpool showed up, Ms. Schmidt showed up, looked over our shoulder, looked up and down the street and said, this is a beautiful street. You guys, with the help of DPW, fixed the problem, most of it. We still have one issue, and I'm gonna go to that later, at a later date. Fixed the problem, we don't have the flooding anymore. But in the meantime, my neighbors are pumping out 6 and 5 feet of water out of the basement, but you reminded me that this was a beautiful neighborhood. Now, look over my shoulder and look at 5-story building. Is it gonna be a beautiful neighborhood anymore? That's all I want you to think about, please. I'm gonna be able to stand in my backyard, and I'm quite a ways, I'm closer to Canal, and I'm gonna be able to see this building. And I was at the neighbor's house today in her pool with my grandson, and he's gonna be looking right up at that. So, just think about it, please. Look out your back window tonight, and look upside, and say, hey, here's a building right there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else on this side? Give me a second. Well, I'll take you first, ma'am. Come on up.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, my name is Lynn McDaniels. I live at 44701 Sterrett. Lived there for 43 years. We're on the corner of Sterrett and Wilsek. This proposed development is essentially an island. The apartment residents will be able to walk anywhere within that area, but they can't walk anywhere else. There are no sidewalks leading from Hall Road. There are no sidewalks or shoulders even on Sterrett. And people who try and walk down there really take their lives in their hands because it's a very, very busy street. This is only going to increase the traffic on Sterrett. And it's single-family homes all up and down that street. We can't have our kids in the front yard because of the traffic. I would just really encourage you to think about that and the additional considerations of the 5-story building. It is just not conducive to the area and the neighborhood. It's nothing like any of the single-family homes that are south of Hall Road. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I'll take you next.
My name is Leslie Hennigan. I live at 11217 Wilsek Court. I have been a resident in Wilsek for 23, almost 24 years. I understand that cities must have reliable sources of revenue to support the services that we currently enjoy. I was and still am aware that this undeveloped property may be developed. However, the proposed wedge development is very intensive for the amount of acreage. If this proposed wedge is approved, the entire neighborhood's privacy will be 100% compromised. Even with a barrier fence, if I planted arborvitaes, they would never grow tall enough to give us our privacy back, not to mention the years they take to fully mature. According to the Preservation Institute, at 5 stories, you can see faces of people and personalizing details. The proposed development is also a large footprint in a small space, and mid-rise buildings are not green to the sun and wind issues per the Gordon University in British Columbia. I also believe that the proposal also does not include enough green space. Our neighborhood will also be subject to additional light, noise, and traffic. Just with the apartment building alone, there will be approximately 300 people. Based on the U.S. Census data of Macomb County per capita of 33,327, it would take 2 people per apartment to afford the rent. Plus traffic from drive-through restaurants and retail shopping, not to mention cooking or trash odors. Garbage companies typically empty dumpsters very early in the morning due to accessibility issues. When's the last time you heard a dumpster being emptied? It's very noisy, and they like to come by like 5 in the morning. I've lived behind commercial property before.
Does Sterling Heights need more shopping and/or fast food restaurants? With regard to lighting, I know the technology is much better, but the radiation of light is still present. If I look out, I can see it. It's a radiation of light in my mind. Last, I keep hearing about the housing shortage. However, the true housing shortage is affecting the low-income families and those with disabilities. There is available real estate for the middle class. Some of it is tied up in maintained but unoccupied freestanding homes. That represents about 5% of the properties that are vacant, held for investments or other reasons. Some of them are held for years. I'm currently aware of 2 such properties. Hasn't anyone noticed they have had a very small water bill for a very long time? Why doesn't the city search out these properties and get the owners to put them on the market in the form of sales or rents? The properties I'm aware of are not seasonal homes. By the way, Michigan is not even in the top 10 for housing shortages. That was by Gleb Nechayev. He is head of research and chief economist at Berkshire Residential Investments. And per Fred, the Federal Reserve economic data, in 2021, Macomb County lost almost 3,600 residents. Does the city really need to add another 150 apartments, 9 shops, 3 fast food restaurants that 100% compromise the privacy of the single-family residents? And I also like to point out a couple things. I learned a lot of things while I was sitting back there. I see in one of the modifications, they actually put a big deck, like on the 3rd floor, put a bunch of chairs out there. Well, that's what I want, a bunch of people looking at us. There are many other properties available within the city that do not back up to residential housing in that same format. And the last thing I would like to say, Sterrett is also a very busy street, and the traffic study mentioned has no reference points. I don't know who did it, what the parameters were, what time of day did they do it, what day of the week, did they sit there in a car, did they put out a strip? They didn't. I know that for a fact. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Anyone else on my right? Yes, sir?
Bob Hennigan, I live with her. There's one thing that I mentioned this at the last time they rezoned it, and there was a different reason. The city council did not rezone it. That went to the zoning board of appeals. The key to the reason people keep buying that property and trying to rezone it is because the property's cheaper that way, and they buy it on an option. And I asked the gentleman if that's the way he's purchasing it, and he said that's true. It's called a gamble. It's rolling the dice, and I don't believe it's up to the city to make sure they win the gamble. And I'm not asking anyone to lose money. You're gonna make money in there anyway, whatever you do. 5 stories, people said it already. There's a lot of property to the east of M53, right on Hall Road, that can be developed like that. Nowhere that close to residential. There's really no reason to stuff that size 13 shoe into a size 10 box at the detriment of the residents that have been there for a while. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else on my right side who hasn't spoken yet? Okay, anyone? Oh, yes, sir.
So, I'm a resident of Ellis Court. I've heard a lot of talk tonight about we don't want the building. I'm with them, right? 5 stories is too much, but what we haven't heard is an alternative. Why not close Sterrett? I'm sorry. I know I take Sterrett 5 days a week. Close Sterrett, solve the traffic problem, expand the commercial property further east, and put the 6-foot dividing wall between the commercial property and a condo complex versus apartments. Our own developer talked about transients. Hotels bring in transients. Apartments, transients on a 1-year lease. Condos give people the American dream, a home of their own. We have 3-story condos at Saul and 19 Mile. Develop it as a condo complex. It's still a neighborhood. We can be neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else on the right? All right, anyone on the left? Yes, sir.
I'll be real quick. This is Vito DiGiovanni, live on Cologne in that area. I just don't think it's fair to everybody who's here today that we are not gonna vote on this because of Mr. Radke. In 2 weeks, when you try to do it again, maybe Ms. Koski won't be here or somebody else, so I don't see the point of putting the vote off. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else on my left? Looking for anybody who hasn't spoken yet. Yep, come on up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Kevin Hessling. I live at 11164 Willset Court. And my home basically my front yard will be looking at this property. And the way I look at it, I'm going to have 40 balconies looking down at my front yard, which is a beautiful front yard. I live on a beautiful street in a beautiful Weinberger ranch. You guys talked about PUD. Basically, PUD gives you the power to change anything you want and build anything you want anywhere you want. But it says there, provided the modification is found to improve the quality of the development above and beyond which could be developed under underlying zoning or results in higher level of public benefit and to achieve the purpose of this article. There are 14 modifications they are asking for. None of them result in a higher level of quality of life at all. The biggest one I come across, I'm a retired dog owner and I go to the dog park every day, is your green space. 158 apartments times 500 feet of green space is supposed to have 79,000 feet of green space. These guys are coming up with 19,125 feet of green space. They're 58,875 feet short of green space, which is lawn, trees, dog runs. They have this little dog park out there. These dogs are going to be so anxious and crazy when they bring them back into those apartments. They're going to drive these people nuts more than Hall Road will. And I know dogs. They were talking about 15 to 40-foot trees. Which is it, 15 or 40? And we're still looking at 40 feet of apartments that are looking down at my front yard, looking down at my neighbors' backyards. Jim wrote you guys an email. It says, if the city council is allowed to bypass the requirements of each of these zoning districts associated with proposed development, how will this lead to better quality of development? Certainly by reducing the most requirements contained in each associated zoning district would not lead to a better quality development. This is contradictory to this development. And if we go through each one of their 14 that they're asking for, I guarantee you not one of them gives you a better quality of property. They're asking for too many modifications on too small of a footprint for too big of a property. It says just because it states above that you can change requirements, standards of your zoning ordinances, doesn't mean you should or are obligated to do so for the benefit of the developer. I understand sometimes requesting a variance on a couple of small items, but this development is needing a lot of variances. And by doing so, it feels like you're devaluing your zoning ordinances to the development as a whole, thereby creating a negative impact on the surrounding area, which is single-family residential. So before a vote for approval or denial by the city council, they need to demonstrate to its residents how any concessions to any part of the zoning ordinance requirements will result in a better quality development and a higher level of public benefit than if not conceded and recognize the potential negative effects on the surrounding areas. So please think about what you're doing to beautiful single-family homes. You're putting me in a fishbowl in my front yard, and I have a gorgeous 15 by 20 porch that I sit on and enjoy and look at those woods. We have fox coming through the neighborhood. We had a deer put a fawn in our backyard for 2 days this year that run through those woods. I mean, I
Okay,
get
sir.
it's gonna be developed, but
All right, sir.
thank you.
Anyone else over here on the left who hasn't spoken yet? Wants a chance? Sir? Anyone else in the middle? Ms. Wright? Sir, if you could just keep your voice down.
Hello, Brandy Wright. I'm at 19 in Shaner. First, I want to say thank you to the first gentleman who spoke. He actually quoted me from the last meeting, and I think he made me sound a little more eloquent than I actually stated it last time, so I appreciate that. Now
His
I-
wife was the real star of the show.
Yeah, the Spanx.
Yeah. Oh, that was her quote. Yeah, that was a good one.
That was her quote.
Now, I think what I'm going to say next is probably going to get me tar and feathered by the crowd behind me. So, I generally do like mixed-use developments, and I think the city needs more of them. I understand, I live nearby, I told them I take Starrett and cut through frequently. I try to go 20 and below, so I don't speed, but they do have a big speeding problem there. I've had people cut me off and go around me going probably 50 down the street. So I understand their concern. My children play at the park, Ben Hadley down the street as well, and we ride our bikes there frequently. I did take the time in the winter when the trees were bare to drive through that neighborhood, and the sight lines are bad. Even I think with 50-foot evergreens in the winter, it's not gonna look great. I think there's room for improvement with this proposal, this development, before, if it does happen to go through. We mentioned, I think during the planning commission period, to maybe move the retail up to the street like other municipalities have done. I'm thinking Troy off of Big Beaver specifically. They have retail at the street level so that then that building, the apartment building, could be moved 50, 60 feet north even, and the parking could be behind the building. That would help with some of those sight lines. Maybe even cutting down a story or so. I did like the gentleman's idea of turning it into condos. I think generally when people own a property, they are more invested in the community. They care more about the community. And that's really it. I'm not going to say yay or nay to this, but I think it could be a little better before it moves forward. But it is something, as someone who lives nearby, depending on the stores that were in there, my family and I would come and we would shop or use some of the services. So I think it's important to remember also that 100,000 cars go through that corridor every single day. So if you're adding 400 cars because of an apartment complex, that's really minuscule in comparison to what's already there. It's not really going to cause an excess of traffic overall. Again, I know it's not my neighborhood. If I agree, if I had a 5-story apartment building in my backyard, I would.
Guys, listen, I understand. We've had 27 speakers tonight. One has said something that's not entirely in line with the rest of you. We can treat her with the respect she treated you, please. Thank you.
So like I said, I would not like a giant building in my backyard. But I've also lived in areas where I've had buildings had to be built behind me when there once was woods with deer and fox. And what was told to me then was we should have purchased that property if we wanted to keep it that way. Which isn't, I understand it's not really a choice for most people. That property is probably going for millions and millions of dollars. But I just think, like I said, some changes could be made and they could work with the residents a little more to make it not as big of an impact on them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Wright. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Just wanted to bring a couple of different things to light. I actually don't live in Sterling Heights, but I have a lot of friends, and I understand this sort of situation. I'm a retired actuary and demographer. Demography is about what environmental decisions you make and how they impact the future. And one of the things that you may want to think about is that when you make this decision, people like, I can validate the gentleman who said that, you know, the trees are unsustainable. They are. The young lady who lives across, who has the nice house across from where that is right now with the deers running through it. Basically, it's not just the impact of putting that in the traffic, it's also basically going to transform your community, because those people are going to basically need to look at other places to live, because you're going to make that place not livable for them. And basically, the way this transformation of demography works is that you're going to see houses, people moving out, and then you're going to have to make other decisions, and you're going to build more places. Yes, this is going to probably bring you more revenue as a city, but also it's also going to bring other problems, and you're going to pay for them. And there are a number of cities that basically experience this. They make these decisions and they regret them, because you're going to have more police. You're going to have things coming into your community that you don't see today. I grew up in Birmingham, and basically there's a lot of, on Old Woodward, 6 and 8 story condominiums and apartments, and basically it's not the place that I grew up in, because when I was there, the Crowley's was the tallest store there. It was 2-story. And just, think about the type of community, because Sterling Heights to me represents a great family community, and it's not happening any longer in this country. There's a lot of it that is going away. I think you might want to think about keeping it a great family community that attracts more new families coming in, not driving them away.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am?
Hi, I live on Canal. I live in between Starrett and Alice Court, and this is actually my first time being at one of these, so this is pretty cool. And I'm not going to say something that someone else has already said, but I've been there for 15 years, and ever since we've had Canal rebuilt, I've noticed more traffic. I've seen accidents on the corner of Starrett, a vehicle hitting the telephone pole. I've seen people that are lost, and they'll do U-turns right at the corner of Canal and Alice, and they'll pull into people's driveways. Like, I see it all the time. And I feel like, especially if you're having 2 drive-throughs, is it going to be like a Starbucks where there's going to be a line like outside of the parking lot going down the road, or a Chick-fil-A? I've seen how busy these drive-throughs get. And what if it's a really great drive-through and there's no space in the parking lot for these cars? So they're going to probably use Starrett or whatever, and that's just going to make it really hard for us that live in that area to get out into Hall Road. It's a lot easier to come into our area to make your turnarounds because you're lost or you don't know where you're at than it is to be on Hall Road and have to go down a mile and then do the Michigan turn to come back. So that's all I have, but thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. That's the first time anyone said a city council meeting was cool. You're welcome back every first and third Tuesday. Anyone else in anywhere? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Carolyn Cece, 44833 Meringue, lived there for 42 years. And I actually drove up and down Canal and Van Dyke and Shaner and counted the apartment complexes. And there are at least 8 within a 1-mile radius of this proposed development. I called each of those apartment complexes. The rents go from $795 to $1,225. This new development is way more expensive, and several of those apartment complexes had current vacancies. So I don't think we need another apartment complex in the area. And also the price of this apartment complex, they're saying they want young professionals, and honestly, I think it was mentioned before, young professionals are not going to want to live at the corner of M59 and M53. They want to live where they can walk to entertainment, bars, restaurants, theaters. You can't walk down Hall Road. You can't walk down Sterrett to any of that. Nice development, wrong place to put it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Nina Peroni. I live on Willside Court. The 2 young men that spoke earlier are my sons. I haven't given up on them yet. Anyway, what I wanted to bring up, when I moved to Willside Court in 1988, it was is and still is a beautiful place to live. It's nice and quiet. The neighbors all take care of each other, watch out for each other. As my kids were playing up and down the street, everybody would watch out for them, as well as all the other kids in the neighborhood. So it was a wonderful place for me to raise my 3 boys. One thing that I want to bring up is that they're promoting this place as a great place for young executives to live. Number one, in the past meetings, they've talked a lot about removing parking spots to allow more green space, okay? Well, and then somebody made a comment that young executives would rather Uber and do other things like that instead of having a vehicle. Well, I'll tell you, with my boys and all their friends, there's no way any of them are ever not going to have a car. Okay, so all those spots that we got rid of, now there's going to be a lot of problems with that. Okay, the other thing, the empty nesters that they're planning on bringing in there, one of these days I'm going to be an empty nester, and I tell you, there's no place I'm going to be anywhere near Hall Road like that. Okay, so I just hope you really think this through and you know, be in our shoes as residents of that area and vote no on this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, she's got it.
She's got it.
Yep, she does.
Mayor Taylor, and council members, I would like to ask that Mayor Taylor's request to deny tonight's vote be canceled, because everyone that's here has a right to be heard, has a right to have their vote talked about and made tonight. Because Mr. Radke's not here should not be the reason why this vote does not take place. You have 5 people here on this council, plus you have the mayor. So you have 4 people plus the mayor on this council here that can vote on this tonight. There's no reason to delay this vote tonight. So I honestly would respectfully ask that the city council and Mayor Taylor go on with this vote tonight, because the people that are here have made their commitment to be here tonight to say their piece, and they deserve to have that answered tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay. Then I will close the public hearing, and council, I would entertain a motion to postpone this item to the July 19th, 2022 city council meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Yanis.
move to postpone this project until the July 19th, is it? Meeting.
Support. It's been moved and supported. Ms. Riska, can we please have a roll call vote?
Mrs. Yarko?
Yes.
Mrs. Kosky?
Yes.
Mr. Radke? Mrs. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Bresky?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Mr. Yanis?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 6-0. Thank you all for your comments.
All be here on the 19th?
And we encourage you. So I would just want to say, I encourage you to come back. This was not an attempt to.
Can you guarantee us you'll all be here on
Ma'am,
the 19th?
please stop. We all listen to you, please. We can sit up here and debate this for an hour and a half or 2 hours, but it's unlikely that a majority will be formed tonight. Because we only have 6 people, it's unlikely that there's going to be a majority. In the interest of your time, in the interest of our time, we are going to have to reconvene this item in 2 weeks when we have a full city council. We almost never have a vacant, or have an absence on city council. I'm very confident that we will have 7 members, and I encourage you to all come back. You can all speak again. We will all patiently listen to every single person who wants to speak. You'll all be heard. This is nothing but the fact that we do not believe that there's going to be a majority found on the city council tonight, okay? So with that, why don't we take about a 5-minute recess, and we'll reconvene shortly after 9 p.m. We'll stand in recess. Calling this meeting of the Sterling Heights City Council back to order. We are going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on any item on tonight's consent agenda? If not, council, we need a motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Mrs. Koski.
move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is to consider approval of a collective bargaining agreement and memorandums of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and the Michigan Association of Public Employees Mape Technical Office Union for the period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025. Presentation from our city manager, Mark Vanderpool. Mr. Vanderpool.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very pleased to be able to provide an overview of this collective bargaining agreement. It's very similar to the past few that you've heard, so I'll be as brief as I can to avoid redundancy with the others. So as you mentioned, the term of the current collective bargaining agreement between the Mape Technical Office and Union expired June 30th. So in anticipation of that, the two teams have been negotiating and have produced the ratified agreement. I should say the union has ratified the agreement before you this evening, and thus we're now seeking city council approval. Just quickly, the highlights include the term. It's a 3-year term. The wages, similar to the others, are 2% the first year, 2.5% the second, 3% in the third year. Very consistent with what we're seeing throughout the industry, the municipal industry, that is, for wage increases. Some in the private sector have been trending higher. The base medical and hospitalization plan remains the high deductible plan. Employees will pay 10% of the health insurance premium, and that will be the plan that they take into retirement as well, including that premium share. Part-time library clerks will receive an increase in premium pay for hours worked on a Sunday from time and a quarter to time and a half. Members in excess of 30 accrued vacation days will have an option of being bought out for up to 10 vacation days, an increase from 7 days under the expiring collective bargaining agreement. And as I mentioned previously, historically, the city's had a comparatively low employer contribution to the employees' defined contribution retirement plan accounts. And now with the DC exceeding the defined benefit, the traditional fixed pension, as a predominant retirement plan for general employees, the city's increasing the DC contribution from 4% to 5%. We're certainly below average, so going up to 5% we think is very reasonable. And then 5.5% the final year of the, the second year of the agreement. Members hired between May 20th, 2008 and June 30th, 2012 have a significant premium share for their retiree health care. So as a result, we are increasing through this agreement their health savings account from $1,000 to $1,800. The city's still saving millions of dollars by phasing out of the traditional retiree health care plan, so this increase is pretty modest in that respect. The city's sole mechanical inspector retired in May of 2022. The employment market, as we all know, for basically all employees, but certainly for inspectors, is incredibly tight, and there simply are few candidates to fill the vacant full-time positions for electrical and mechanical. Through a memorandum of understanding, which is part of the agreement, the city and union have a tentative agreement to rehire the mechanical inspector for a period of up to 3 years. We're hoping by then we'll see the tightness in the labor market retreat some. All other monetary benefits remain the same as under the expiring CBA, and I just wanted to thank once again our leadership team led by Assistant City Manager Jeff Bahorsky, who works very hard along with the union leadership team, and it displayed great professionalism, resulting in this mutually advantageous agreement before you this evening. And based on all of this, I respectfully request the mayor and city council approve the agreement before you. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Vanderpool. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item? Not. Council, we need a motion.
Mayor Taylor,
Mrs. Schmidt.
Resolved to approve the collective bargaining agreement and memorandums of understanding between the City of Sterling Heights and the Michigan Association of Public Employees, Mape Technical Office Union, for a period of July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign all documents required in conjunction with this approval.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Any discussion?
I think it was explained. I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schmidt. Anyone else? No further discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That completes that portion of our agenda. We'll move on to communications from citizens. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on any item not on tonight's agenda? Mr. Zanoy, is it?
I thought I would channel the 10th leper who came back with thanks, to thank those members of the city council who, were in favor of the motion to deny the Sterling Landings 3. And to channel Mr. Spock, I would say your rationale and logic were impeccable. And I hope, and I think, one thing I think I've learned, and one of the sayings I always keep in mind from the samurai of feudal Japan is they had a saying, when you think the battle is over, tighten your helmet straps. And I can't but think, even though Mr. Gallo was disappointed with your vote, he may come back with a slightly modified proposal, maybe taking 64 apartments down to 60 and considering it a very major improvement. But I hope you will all remember, the issues you took up with regard to density, parking, traffic, snow removal, crime, and maintain your positions accordingly. And again, I just wanted to thank you on that note. One other thing I wanted to bring up, which, again, excuse my ignorance of the rules of order last week or last meeting where I got up and tried to make some comments about an issue that wasn't really pertinent. But this gets me to rules of order and with regards to the Planning Commission, and something I'd like to bring up with regard to what I would consider their arbitrary and inconsistent application of their rules of order. And I can give you some examples, like during the first Planning Commission meeting on the Sterling Landings 3, in the middle of the presentation, Mr. Ruggieri, I believe, the attorney for Mr. Gallo, was discussing things about the project, and he said, well, I have something that's really not related to this, but I feel compelled to bring it up with regard to a disturbing email that someone put in the comments section, which he considered a personal attack, and went on to, call for a retraction. And then at the end of, his appeal, the chairman finally said, let's try to keep to the topic with regard to the property in general. And also in that first meeting, citizens were allowed to bring up issues related to crime with regards to Sterling Landings 1 and 2, and the petitioner was allowed to discuss at length what steps he was taking to improve safety at Sterling Landings 1 and 2. And yet, during the second Planning Commission meeting, when my wife tried to bring up statistics regarding crime at Sterling Landings 1 and 2, she was immediately shut down because it was not pertinent to discussion of the properties at hand, which that probably was true, but again, you can see my problem with the inconsistency of the application of rules of order. And I think that should be addressed, especially by Mayor Taylor, who's, these are all your appointees. So I think they need a little guidance as far as how they run these meetings. And thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else under communications? Take you first, ma'am.
If I may approach
I'd like,
Yeah, if you want to give it to our clerk, she can, she'll hand them out to us.
Thank you. My name is Cindy Hart. I live at 41325 North Central. Having a little bit of an issue with the sidewalk deal that is coming through right now. Several years ago, I had a tree that was leaning, and it was falling towards the street. And I had notified the city about this tree. They came out, they took a look at it. They were going to charge me, I believe it was $1,800 to take down a healthy tree, even though it was leaning. And I advised them at that time that 2 slabs of my sidewalk were being moved because of the tree roots of this tree. Year and a half ago, I contacted the DPW again because of the same tree. It has now destroyed roughly 7 slabs of my sidewalk. Nobody would do anything about it until I called Mayor Taylor, and I thank you. He came out, looked at the tree with somebody else, and they determined the tree did need to come down. The tree came down. As you can see in the pictures that I have provided, if she handed them out, when the tree came down, it was roughly a year and a half ago. What was left after that was a mess of chunks of wood, all in my grass, sidewalk, sawdust. It was everywhere. I cleaned up what I could, so I wasn't propelling pieces of wood with either the lawnmower or the snow blower. It was that time of year. I called the city again. They sent somebody out, sent a crew out to clean up the mess, thankfully. What is left now is what you see in the 3rd page. It has been a year and a half since that tree has been taken down. The ground is very uneven. The tree roots are still under the sidewalk. The sidewalk has been marked for replacement from the end of my property line past my driveway at an estimate of almost $2,000. I am a widow. I live by myself. I work very hard to keep my house, my lawn, looking nice. This is not nice, what I'm looking at every day next to my driveway. The sidewalk, as you can see, the city came out and they put patchwork on the sidewalk because it's a huge trip hazard. There's 3 and 4 inches of gap of concrete in this. It's still a trip hazard, and if you look in those pictures, you will see I have snow markers on that sidewalk in 2 spots so that people will see the snow markers and not trip when they come down my sidewalk. What I'm asking for at this time is a reconsideration of this sidewalk because I asked several years ago for this tree to be taken down before it destroyed my sidewalk. I was denied. Now it has destroyed my sidewalk. It's a city tree. It's destroyed my sidewalk, and you're asking me to foot the bill of $1,914 for something I begged for several years ago. I invite you to come back out to my home anytime and look at it. It is an eyesore. All the houses on my street, with the exception of my next door neighbor, all the houses on my street have immaculate lawns. I don't, because this is what I've been left with for a year and a half. I appreciate, Mayor Taylor, your help in getting this tree removed, but it's a little bit too late in the fact that my sidewalk has been destroyed, and I'm looking at almost $2,000. I'm a widow of 3 years. I work 2 jobs to pay my husband's medical bills that he left me with.
Okay, ma'am, so thank you for coming up. I was happy to help, and I've still got the message from you on Facebook. So if you want, please text me like a phone number for you.
Of course.
Okay?
I will.
And the city's going to get out in the next couple days or week or so and review the grass and see if we can address that. With regard to the sidewalk, the city has a program that might be able to help you. So I'm going to put you in touch with our city manager
appreciate
and the
that.
city clerk and apply for it, and there might be some money available for this to help you with it, okay?
I would appreciate that.
So send me that message tonight or tomorrow sometime, and
I
I'll
will.
put you in contact with city
I
administration.
will. I
Okay?
thank you very much
All
for
right.
your time.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Mayor Taylor?
Yeah, Mrs. Zarko.
She could, if she has time, through the chair, if you could see me after the meeting about your husband's medical bills and you being responsible for them after the meeting, because my husband passed away too, and I was not responsible for any of the bills, and that's the law in the state of Michigan.
I've already paid over $36,000. I have $20,000 more to go.
Well, talk to Mrs. Zarko.
Yeah.
I will. I thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hart. Mr. Smith?
Good evening. A couple days ago, I happened to watch a replay of the Planning Commission meeting on television. It was so good, I watched it twice. It was so nice, I watched it twice. It had to do with a group of 4 people that had come up with a scheme to open a banquet hall. And it seemed like they must have wasted an hour or an hour and a half haggling with these people, when all they could say is, in 2017, city council passed an ordinance, no more banquet halls in Sterling Heights. We got too many banquet halls. Banquet halls are oversaturated. There'll be no banquet halls. And they went round and round on all the features of this banquet hall, and all they really had to say was, no more banquet halls in Sterling Heights. And the Planning Commission really had nothing to say about it, that the people that wanted the banquet hall needed to come to city council and ask for an exception. So just like every other ordinance and rule in Sterling Heights, it goes, no, no, no. Oh, you're okay. No, no, you, this one, not that one. You know, that sort of smacks of favoritism, prejudice, maybe even bribery when you have ordinances say you can't do this, you can't do this. Oh, but you can do it. Well, they kind of got around to, well, why are there no more banquet halls in Sterling Heights? Well, everybody on the Planning Commission and the planner, they all knew the answer, but they were afraid to say it. That they wouldn't come out and say that a developer bought the Maple Lane Golf Course across from Polish Century Club, and a council member was afraid of having a bigger and better banquet hall put in across from her banquet hall, and they put through the ordinance. And she was able to get the votes because, you know, you've got the St. Lawrence Knights Club and the Carpathian Club and Italian clubs. You got union halls. I mean, I have to let Mayor Taylor off the hook on this. I don't see that Mayor Taylor's involved in the hall rental business, but everybody else was. And all the other businesses in Sterling Heights are oversaturated. If you want to open a bar or a gas station or a nail shop or something, well, you know, take your shot, and if you go broke or the next guy goes broke, that's okay because business is business. That's the American way. But somehow in 2017, you guys said, no more banquet halls in Sterling Heights. And, well, why? Well, it seemed like competition with the Polish Century Club was really the key element that kicked it off. And if I'm wrong, I'd really like to hear the people that said no more banquet halls in Sterling Heights. Why don't you say what your reasoning was? Well, this group of people, they were kind of shocked when they went through their efforts, and they really didn't do their homework very well, because the facility they were looking at was the abandoned Ike's location, which in fact, in the old Ike's, he ran it as a banquet hall till he moved up to a bigger and better banquet hall. And they could have said it's not a new banquet hall, it's just a refurbished one. But they didn't think of that. Maybe they'll think of that when they come to the exception. But you really, I'd say stay the course. No more banquet halls in Sterling Heights. Or maybe you would be better advised to get rid of the ordinance and let banquet halls be part of the American free enterprise system, just like 5-story apartments. I guess a parting shot, this postponement of the vote is an abuse of power that really tops your normal standards of abuse of power.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Anyone else under communications from citizens? Not close that portion, go on to reports from city administration. Anything tonight, Mr. Vanderpool?
Nothing further, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Koszybski.
No closed session tonight, Mayor.
Council, any reports or new business tonight? If not, then I won't have anything either. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and supported with no discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.